And I'm especially ticked off at the piece that I read by Adam Kinzinger. I mean, this is a guy, you look at all the articles. Oh, Kinzinger, Trump wrong on the Assange tweet. Trump's Sweden comment, an embarrassing moment, saying the United States was a terrorist attack and there wasn't, going on and on, everything. And he said he wouldn't vote for him. But now he's lecturing the Freedom Caucus, who did support him and helped get him elected. Gets a little frustrating. And then he had a Speaker of the House that wouldn't even appear with Donald Trump when he was a candidate. But it's the Freedom Caucus that's the problem. Well, maybe if Paul Ryan and the legislative branch, after 8 years, would have put together a bill that was consensus-driven and that brought all the different coalitions in the Republican Party in the House together before they unveiled this bill, it would have worked out a lot better for everybody. Anyway, Ann Coulter is with us. And, of course, E Pluribus Awesome, the case for Trump, and New York Times bestseller. How are you?
Fantastic, and I'm sorry to say I agree with everything you just said.
Me too. It's sad. I'm like, what's going on here? Who's our real friends in all of this?
No, I know, and I don't know. I keep holding the Emperor God Trump harmless on everything. So whoever told him to send out those mean tweets about the Freedom Caucus should be fired and kept away from him as much as possible. No, I think this is a terrible mistake, particularly because of what a disaster that Obamacare Light was. Oh my gosh, we would have been wiped out in the midterms if that had gone through. It is the classic Republican move. We won't actually overturn all the socialist stuff the Democrats did. We'll just give you less free stuff. Oh, that's fantastic. And as I described in my column this week, and I understand the politics of this. I've worked in the Senate, and I know a lot of times conservative purists in this way or that can come up with, the perfect plan, the perfect deal, and politicians sit back and say, yeah, but we're never going to get that passed. We have constituents, we have Democrats. No, the bill I have is beautiful. Democrats can't vote against it. It is very simple. You keep everyone on Obamacare who wants to stay on Obamacare. There is no one to complain about that. But you allow a free market in health insurance. Nationwide free market. Within a year, 80% of Americans will be buying their health insurance on the free market. I'll finally have decent health insurance where if I get cancer, I can go to a decent cancer hospital, but I won't have to pay through my health insurance premiums for everyone else's, transgender operations and pregnancies and prenatal care and gambling addiction therapy. That is how Obamacare is paid for. That is the true evil of Obamacare. Instead of just being a standard welfare program that we pay for, everybody pays taxes. Warren Buffett pays more than Ann does. And out of the general fund, the welfare cases are funded. No, this is a welfare program that we pay for through our insurance premiums, and Ann pays as much, probably more, than Warren Buffett does. I'm sorry, that's just not fair. Please let us just have a free market in health insurance. We can have little geckos on TV advertising the great plans at good prices. The free market always provides better access, better prices. I don't want Paul Ryan figuring out what my premium should do. I want an insurance company competing for my business. And if Congress would just do that, within a year, the welfare cases would be much smaller, and they can figure out, his little, precious quasi-free market ways to deliver that. But who cares if they vote against it? It's just another welfare plan paid out of a general fund as opposed to through our insurance premiums.
Have you been following, and I agree with everything you just said, and you said it very articulately. I don't have much to add to it. The free market solves all our problems. Mm-hmm. Have you been following the attacks on Devin Nunes and I don't know if you've been watching my show and all this tape that I keep playing of Evelyn Farkas, who used to work for Obama?
Fantastic. I'm so glad you're playing that. No, I'm in L.A. I'm always going to dinner right when your show comes on. I'm getting ready right before you come on. I'll have to have later dinner appointments. But yes,
you're aware of the story.
Is hilarious. They just keep, it really is George Orwell's 1984, where they keep cycling through a new Emmanuel Goldstein. That was the guy, the fictional person they'd put up on screen and have the 2 minutes hate, where all the people would just scream, their faces contorted in rage, scream at Emmanuel Goldstein. So our Emmanuel Goldstein so far have been, well, of course, Trump himself, Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, Kellyanne Conway, Michael Flynn, DeVos, the education secretary, and now we're cycling through this poor Devin Nunes. The question I have about this is, even if everything they say is correct, and I don't know, I guess it seems to be, that some of the information Representative Nunes got was from White House people looking over the counterintelligence from the Obama era. So what? So what?
Isn't the issue supposed to be, why were they surveilling either a candidate, opposition party candidate, a president-elect, and his entire staff? And this is where it gets interesting with this woman, Evelyn Farkas, and we'll have more on this at the top of the next hour. You know, when she goes out there, I'm urging my former colleagues, get as much intelligence as you can. And I fear this information, the intelligence will disappear. And if the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff dealing with the Russians, they'd compromise sources and methods. And I'm like, so she's admitting to surveillance, unmasking, and talking about leaking.
Yes, she's bragging about how, Trump was so dangerous, we were surveilling him. And now, well, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't have been doing that. No, the underlying crime here is actually pretty shocking. To have a president of the United States surveilling an opposition candidate or, people around him. Remember at one of the debates, Trump had that fantastic joke when Hillary said something like, well, heaven forbid that you'd be in charge of law enforcement in this country. And he said, yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Yeah.
And the left went mental, claiming this is like it's a banana republic. He's threatening to put an opponent in jail. Well, no, he wasn't threatening to put her in jail for being his opponent. It was, if she has committed a crime, she would be subject to the criminal justice system the same as any other citizen. This is not a third banana republic. That's where you put your opponent in prison just for being your opponent. That's what is going on here. The Obama administration surveilling people around Trump just because he was the opponent. That is banana republic territory. And I suppose their argument would be, although I would love to hear them make it, that what Nunes did wrong was he's not operating as just, a purely nonpartisan judge, as if it's a courtroom, and he's going to one party involved in all of this. But, okay, could we go back to those Eric Holder hearings and see how nonpartisan the Democrats were? See how nonpartisan the White House was? They did everything they could to block Eric Holder from telling us the truth about that insane Fast and Furious program and many other things. Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, was held in contempt, and the White House refused to enforce it. In fact, this White House ought to enforce that contempt order. I don't think the statute of limitations is run on that. The idea that Democrats are just, these nonpartisan seekers of truth at congressional hearings is madness.
Well, when you watch, we've listened now for 8 months about this Russian conspiracy with the election, and yet there's not a shred of evidence. Now, we do know in the case of General Flynn that a felony was committed because they released intelligence and they leaked intelligence. So that would be a violation of the Espionage Act and a felony. But if you ask the legal question, does the disclosure of any intelligence data by White House officials that are authorized to have the materials given to the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee violate the law in any way, shape, manner, or form? Well, even the New York Times concedes there's no accusation of law breaking. And if I think that if a president was being surveilled, that is something the country needs to know. Who knew what, when, and where? And if Evelyn Farkas, who wasn't even in the Obama administration at that time, if she knew about it, and she's talking about spreading the information, I'm urging my colleagues, get as much intelligence as you can. And if the Trump folks find out how we knew what we knew about their Trump staff dealing with Russia, well, now we're talking about other potential crimes, aren't we? And that is surveilling. Why were they surveilling? Were they using the ruse of gathering foreign intelligence? Why were they unmasking? When she says if the Trump staff finds out what we knew about them, okay, they were unmasking who the individuals, Americans were, but there was no warrant at all to get that intelligence on an American citizen. And the third thing is when she talks about, get as much intelligence as you can. I'm urging my former colleagues. So I think that, if anything, that this statement of hers should open up a Pandora's box, and I would expect the House Intelligence Committee and maybe the Attorney General to begin investigations.
Yes, it's interesting of the two claims, the Russia collusion with the Trump campaign, every single part, there's zero evidence for it, and in fact, the sort of weak tea evidence they have put forward, it all keeps falling apart. But Trump's claim that he was, quote, wiretapped, no, the evidence just keeps accumulating for that. I mean, in addition to the Farkas quote, there's the fact that these conversations with Michael Flynn not only were taped, but were released to the media. I mean, whether or not a crime is committed here, and we know there was with the leaking aspect of it, maybe not with the gathering of it, we know it happened. That is a fact, whereas from the get-go,
that's a fact, and that's a felony.
Is just craziness. I mean, it's crazy. Consider what people in America who are paying attention to the election, what they thought was going to happen on Election Day. The Russians are pretty good spy masters, even assuming they'd get something out of it. But to think that you could influence an election where, according to the New York Times, Hillary had a 95% chance of winning, no, this isn't how spycraft works. I mean, what if now it looks like they weren't even the ones who tapped the
I got to put you on hold here, but remember, too, Obama did, we know, try to influence the Israeli elections. Nobody seems to care about that little point that's been proven. It's only bad if somebody tries to do it to us, which there's no evidence they did.
Hannity Headline, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
All right, as we continue, Ann Coulter is with us as we talk about the issues of the day here on a Friday. All right, so Neil Gorsuch, we now move into new territory here. And it looks like there's only 2 Democrats that are going to allow an up or down vote. You need 8 to get over cloture and to get an up and down vote for Gorsuch. Now, the Democrats are trying to spin this that, well, this is unbelievable. This is a break in tradition. But the truth is, the break in tradition would be that the Senate has never, ever used a filibuster to defeat a nominee with majority support. And so you have Chuck Schumer promising to filibuster this and go scorched earth and deny this guy an up or down vote. So if he's going to change the rules, I assume the Republicans will hopefully do the same.
Well, they better. I just find this whole thing about, poor Merrick Garland, it doesn't pass the laugh test, to use a cliche. No one thinks that if in the last year of a Bush administration or the Trump administration, if Ruth Bader Ginsburg resigns or otherwise is unavailable, that the Democrats wouldn't do the exact same thing. Oh, come on, cut the crap. You have got to be kidding me. Of course they would do the same thing. And in fact, of course, all these other, I think since Scalia, I think he was the last one to get an overwhelming number of senators voting for him, but the rest of them, Clarence Thomas, I think, got through with something like 52 votes. When they're the ones in power, all new rules apply. And then Republicans come in and, no, that's unfair. But if we could just go back to one thing that I think it's worth alerting people to. The one thing on Russia, they seem to have absolutely rock solid. This much we know, that it's Russia that hacked the DNC. Well, now that claim is not only falling apart, and as I was saying before the break, I just don't think it makes any sense. What if, the DNC leaks were all about how the DNC was screwing over Bernie Sanders. Well, what if the Democrats had reacted by saying, okay, Hillary, we gave you your chance, but that's it, we're running Biden. But plus, note how not only has Julian Assange said, this is absolutely not from the Russians, and I believe he said this came from someone within the DNC. Coming from someone within the DNC is the only thing that makes sense. It was some Bernie supporter who was ticked off at how he was being screwed over by the DNC. And I note that this week, every single member of the DNC was laid off. They cleared house. So I think that, and Assange, whatever, he may be evil, maybe he shouldn't be leaking all this stuff, but I don't think anybody thinks of him as a liar, and he says it's not Russia. One of the major reports...
I think I'm the only one to interview the guy, and he swears up and down, and more beyond that. If you're mad at Julian Assange, then get mad at the New York Times, because they printed everything WikiLeaks printed.
Right. I mean, I'm not wholesale endorsing Assange. I'm just saying of the qualities about him, if anything, he's like relentlessly truthful. The one outfit that was claiming, no, we looked at these DNC hacks, it's Russia, it's this fancy bear thing. Well, all these outside firms, I just tweeted it out this week, they were quoted in the Miami Herald saying, no, this is absolutely not true.
With no evidence after 8 months, it's insane, and they're missing everything in terms of what's really valuable. But this is all going to blow up in their face. Ann Coulter, have a great weekend. We love you. Thank you.